Hello everyone, I'm Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I want to talk about CAQH and how it plays an important role with provider credentialing. Before we jump into the topic today, I just want to let you know that I have launched a healthcare credentialing and contracting course. This is aimed at anyone who is curious about credentialing and contracting, including people who are maybe looking at becoming a credentialing specialist, maybe a new owner or manager that is curious about what credentialing and contracting is and what goes into it, or even maybe someone who just wants to educate themselves to get a better understanding so that they can manage staff who are responsible for this responsibility, or maybe even a third party that is hired just to make sure that you know what you know and you can ask the right questions. So please check out my credentialing course. It's on Thinkific, it's hosted there, and the link will be in the video description. All right, CAQH and provider credentialing. Before I start talking about CAQH, I want to talk about provider credentialing. A lot of people don't understand the purpose or really the goal of credentialing. And you need to understand this in order to understand why you have to put the information you do into CAQH. Provider credentialing is the process that insurances use in order to basically vet and do a background check to make sure that any providers who will be representing these insurance companies and seeing their beneficiaries, the patients who are insured with the insurance that they offer, is going to be in good hands, that they are having providers who are not going to put them at a higher liability. And the credentialing process is essentially a very deep dive background check specifically for healthcare. The credentialing process is quite extensive and they ask for a lot of information. And when you have to do this for every single insurance in which a provider is wanting to participate and see patients, then it can become even more complicated if you're not on top of it. And I have videos talking about how to be successful in credentialing. I go over this in my course, but provider credentialing, if a provider wants to see patients with certain insurances, they want to have their name on an insurance website as someone who is participating, if they want to try to get the highest payment they can by becoming enrolled with an insurance company, they first have to go through the credentialing process. The CAQH platform, which the CAQH Pro View is for providers, and that is an electronic storage application, portal, what have you, where the information that insurances require for credentialing is stored. There is an option for insurances to kind of take a back door to CAQH and access provider information once they get a request that a provider wants to become participating with their insurance company. But not all insurances use CAQH, and they don't have to. I can tell you that the idea behind CAQH was originally developed to hopefully try to streamline the credentialing process because it can get so confusing with all insurances requiring different types of information at different times and submissions being different and their process just being a little off compared to one another. And this was supposed to uniform it across the country. Unfortunately, it didn't get to that point, but I can tell you a lot of insurances do utilize CAQH, and it's a really great platform for the storage, like I said, of all the information because it's in one spot, it's easy to update because it's electronic, and you can print a CAQH application with that information if you needed to. Not all insurances accept the CAQH credentialing application. Sometimes you have to fill out the state's generic kind of specific credentialing applications for different payers in different states, but it's a perfect place to use as a reference. It is something that does need to be utilized because there are insurances that require it. ProView CAQH, all providers should have their own login to CAQH. And because a lot of times somebody works on a provider's behalf to help with credentialing, they will have to share their login information with a credentialing specialist, a manager, or a staff member who is responsible for the credentialing in order for things to be kept updated, and you have to attest to it every so often to make sure that it's all good for whenever an insurance does go in and try to get the information. It is a portal that does need to be managed and updated and maintained, but that doesn't mean a provider has to be the only one to do it. And the nice thing about CAQH is they now have a manager's access login where a manager for a practice could actually create their own login for the group, and they can enter all of the information about the group, the address, practice locations, hours, tax IDs, MPI-2s, access information for like disabled accessibility. It has questions about licensures, and the manager can do that and then also list the providers from CAQH who are practicing in that group. And then once the providers are associated to that practice in CAQH, it just makes it easier to load all of the clinic employer data from that practice into their individual profiles. CAQH is done recently a kind of a revamp to their site. I noticed that recently. They didn't make a lot of huge changes, but there are some little things that I noticed just from having worked in the portal for so long. But it is just a really nice place to be able to go and access information, to ask providers to update information, and it's electronic. Like I said, it just makes it so easy. And not only is it kind of a portal where you enter information, but you can also, and you need to, upload documents that are required for credentialing. So state licensures, DEA registrations, certificate of insurance, those types of items that are required to be kept up to date and provided to insurance companies. That is a place where you can also store those items. It's just a nice place to go and know that you can get the information you need as long as you're managing it or someone is maintaining it. Often they also interface, or the CAQH will talk to some of the credentialing software that is out there. I'm not super familiar with credentialing software, but I do know it exists, and I do know there are some that do interface or at least have some kind of intercapabilities with one another to make that process even more efficient than just using CAQH. So if you are new to healthcare, if you're a new provider, if you've never had to deal with credentialing before, maybe as a manager or someone who is now a manager or a staff member that is going to be taking on this responsibility, learning CAQH is super important. There's a ton of resources available on the website. Make sure you take advantage of those, the manuals, the step-by-step instructions. They are very helpful. They're very clear instructions. You won't be disappointed. If you have any questions or comments about provider credentialing and how CAQH plays a role, please leave that in the comments below. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And please, as always, share my video with any colleagues whom you feel would benefit. Thank you so much for the support. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.